December 7, 1941. 7:48 a.m. Hawaiian time. Pearl Harbor, Oahu. The first torpedo strikes the water less than 100 yards from Battleship Row. It runs straight and shallow, modified for a harbor never meant to hold deep water weapons. Within minutes, Arizona is burning. Oklahoma is capsizing. The Pacific Fleet is immobilized where it sits. From the perspective of the Japanese combined fleet, this moment is the result of careful calculation, not desperation. The United States Navy has been neutralized without a formal declaration of war. The distance from Japan to Hawaii, over 3,800 miles, has been crossed without detection. The operational gamble has paid off. But even before the smoke clears, the constraints that will define the war are already present. They are not visible from the air. They are not felt on the deck of a carrier. They exist in shipyards, fuel depots, production schedules, and institutional assumptions that will not be revised in time. The decision to strike Pearl Harbor rests on a belief that has hardened over years, that the United States is a material giant but a strategic amateur, slow to mobilize, politically divided, and unwilling to absorb sustained losses far from home. Japan does not need to defeat America outright. It needs only to break its will long enough to secure an empire stretching from Manchuria to the Dutch East Indies. This belief is not irrational. It is derived from observation. The United States has not fought a major naval war since 1918. Its fleet is split between two oceans. Its public is deeply isolationist. Its industrial capacity, though vast, is not yet mobilized. In Tokyo, war planners calculate that time, not territory, is the decisive factor. Time is also Japan's most severe constraint. Japan imports more than 80% of its oil. Its steel production lags far behind that of the United States. Its merchant marine is limited. Every mile of ocean Japan controls must be supplied, defended, and patrolled with ships it cannot easily replace. The attack on Pearl Harbor is meant to buy a window, 6 months, perhaps a year, during which Japan can seize resource-rich territories and fortify a defensive perimeter so costly to breach that Washington will negotiate. But the attack does not destroy what it cannot reach. The American aircraft carriers are not in harbor. The fuel tanks at Pearl Harbor remain intact. The submarine base is untouched. The shipyard survives. The Pacific Fleet is damaged but not dismantled. This omission is not accidental. It is a product of doctrine. Japanese naval thinking has been shaped by the decisive battle theory inherited from Tsushima in 1905, that wars are won when opposing battle fleets meet in a single, climactic engagement. Carriers are valuable, but battleships are still considered the final arbiters of victory. Fuel storage and repair facilities are not primary targets in such a framework. They do not sink fleets. They merely sustain them. Within hours of the attack, the Japanese strike force withdraws. It has achieved surprise, inflicted damage, and preserved its carriers. Lingering risks counterattack. The operation is judged a success. What cannot yet be measured is what has been set in motion. On December 8, the United States declares war. Germany declares war on the United States 3 days later. The American industrial base, still operating at peacetime levels, begins to turn. This transformation is not immediate. It is constrained by contracts, tooling, labor training, and shipping priorities. But it is irreversible. In early 1942, Japan moves rapidly. Hong Kong falls. The Philippines are cut off. Singapore collapses. The Dutch East Indies are seized. Oil begins flowing to the home islands. The perimeter expands across thousands of miles of ocean. Each gain creates a new obligation. Every garrison requires food, ammunition, medical supplies. Every airfield requires fuel and spare parts. Every mile of sea lane requires escort. Japan's merchant fleet, already strained, is now responsible for sustaining an empire that stretches from Burma to the Solomon Islands. There is no centralized anti-submarine doctrine. Convoy systems are poorly implemented. Industrial priorities favor warships over cargo vessels. Losses mount slowly, almost invisibly. Meanwhile, the United States Navy faces its own constraints. The Pacific Fleet has lost battleships. Carrier strength is limited. Communications intelligence is fragmented. Command relationships between Washington, Pearl Harbor, and field commanders are still being defined. Yet American planners possess one advantage that cannot be accelerated or substituted: industrial scalability. In 1941, the United States produces fewer than 3 aircraft carriers per year. By 1943, it will produce one every few months. This shift does not appear in operational reports. It exists in factory schedules and labor statistics, far removed from the front lines. Japan cannot see it clearly. And if it could, it lacks the means to counter it. In April 1942, a small American task force approaches the Japanese home islands. 16 Army bombers launch from a carrier, strike Tokyo, and continue toward China. Militarily, the damage is negligible. Strategically, the effect is profound. The raid exposes a vulnerability Japan believed did not exist. The inner perimeter is not secure. Carrier aviation has demonstrated reach beyond expectations. The response is immediate and logical. Japanese leadership accelerates plans to extend the defensive perimeter eastward, to eliminate American carrier forces, and to draw the U.S. Navy into a decisive engagement near Midway Atoll. The objective is not conquest. It is attrition, forcing the Americans to fight on Japanese terms, far from repair facilities, under conditions Japan believes it can control. This decision compounds existing constraints. Midway lies over 1,300 miles from Japan. Every ship involved must be fueled, supplied, and coordinated across vast distances. Radio silence complicates command and control. The operation requires precise timing between multiple task forces, separated by hundreds of miles. Japanese intelligence underestimates American carrier strength. Communications intercepts are dismissed or misinterpreted. Assumptions hardened by earlier success go unchallenged. By June 1942, the combined fleet sails with 4 frontline carriers, assets that cannot be replaced within the war's foreseeable timeline. Their pilots are veterans of China and the opening months of the Pacific War. Training pipelines are slow. Aircraft production cannot match losses. The commitment is total. When the battle unfolds, it does not resemble Tsushima. There is no line of battle, no visible enemy fleet. There is confusion, delay, and incomplete information. American codebreakers have provided warning. U.S. carriers wait northeast of Midway. Their pilots launch with limited intelligence, searching empty ocean. The Japanese carriers are caught in the midst of rearming, bombs and fuel hoses on deck, aircraft vulnerable, fighters out of position. The strikes arrive not through superior planning, but through convergence of delay, miscalculation, and chance. Within minutes, Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu are fatally damaged. Hiryu follows hours later. Japan loses 4 carriers, hundreds of aircraft, and many of its most experienced aviators. The industrial math behind the war shifts permanently. At the time, the implications are not fully understood. Japan still holds vast territory. Its fleet remains formidable. Its army is largely intact. But a threshold has been crossed. Carrier aviation, not battleships, has become the decisive instrument. Japan no longer possesses the margin of error required to absorb losses. The United States, though battered, retains the capacity to learn, adapt, and replace. From this point forward, time no longer favors Japan. It accumulates against it. The war continues. The perimeter begins to contract. And the logic that once made Japan's decisions appear rational begins to reveal their cost. Not in collapse. In arithmetic. August 7, 1942. Dawn breaks over the Solomon Islands. U.S. Marines land on Guadalcanal. The decision to go ashore is made under constraint, not confidence. The United States does not yet possess overwhelming naval strength in the Pacific. Carrier numbers are thin. Escort vessels are limited. Amphibious doctrine is still incomplete. Many of the men stepping into the surf have trained for weeks, not years. But delay is no longer an option. Japanese engineers are constructing an airfield on Guadalcanal. If completed, it will place American supply lines to Australia under constant threat. The distance from Hawaii to the South Pacific is measured in thousands of miles. Every ship moving south carries fuel that cannot be easily replaced. Every convoy is vulnerable. Guadalcanal is not chosen because it is ideal. It is chosen because it is urgent. The initial landings meet limited resistance. The airfield is captured and renamed Henderson Field. For a brief moment, it appears the Americans may have arrived ahead of Japanese reinforcement. That moment passes quickly. Japan responds with speed that reflects both competence and necessity. Troops are rushed south aboard destroyers, the so-called Tokyo Express, running at night to avoid American air power. These ships are designed for combat, not transport. They carry men, not heavy equipment. Artillery, vehicles, and sufficient supplies are left behind. This choice is not tactical improvisation. It is structural constraint. Japan lacks enough transports willing to risk daylight passage under American aircraft. Destroyers are what remain. Each night run trades long-term naval strength for immediate survival. The campaign becomes a struggle measured in days rather than territory. Henderson Field must be kept operational. Aircraft require fuel and spare parts flown or shipped across contested waters. Pilots rotate in and out with little rest. Losses are replaced unevenly. The Japanese face a different arithmetic. Every pilot lost over Guadalcanal represents months of training that cannot be accelerated. Every ship damaged must return to yards already overburdened. Oil stocks are finite. Replacement aircraft arrive slowly, often inferior to the models they replace. The United States absorbs losses and continues. Japan spends irreplaceable assets to maintain parity. Naval battles erupt almost continuously. Savo Island, Eastern Solomons, Cape Esperance, Santa Cruz. None deliver a decisive conclusion. Each reduces margins. At Santa Cruz, the Japanese win tactically. American carriers are damaged. Aircraft losses are heavy. But Japanese air crews suffer casualties that cannot be replenished. The operational victory conceals strategic attrition. By November 1942, the supply situation on Guadalcanal becomes unsustainable for Japan. Starvation spreads among ground forces. Artillery ammunition runs out. Medical evacuation is impossible. The decision to withdraw is delayed longer than logic suggests. Institutional pressure, fear of appearing weak, and faith in one more effort keep troops committed past the point of recovery. When evacuation finally occurs, thousands are left behind. Guadalcanal marks a shift not because it is dramatic, but because it establishes a pattern. The United States will advance slowly, deliberately, selecting objectives that force Japan to respond across distances it cannot efficiently sustain. This approach is not immediately named or formalized. It emerges from constraint. The United States cannot attack everywhere. It lacks the shipping. The Army and Navy disagree on priorities. Resources are still divided between Europe and the Pacific. Every offensive must justify its cost. The solution is selective pressure. In the Central Pacific, island-by-island advances are planned around airfield construction ranges and carrier coverage. In the Southwest Pacific, General MacArthur pushes north through New Guinea, bypassing strong points and isolating them. These bypassed garrisons remain armed, supplied initially, and dangerous. Over time they become irrelevant. Their supply lines are cut. Aircraft are grounded. Food runs out. Japan has committed to defend an empire too large to retract. The American submarine campaign intensifies quietly. At first ineffective, hampered by faulty torpedoes and conservative doctrine, it adapts. By late 1943, improvements in weapons and tactics begin to take effect. Japanese merchant shipping declines steadily. Losses exceed replacement capacity. Oil tankers become prime targets. Fuel shortages spread from the fleet to training units, then to civilian industry. The effect is delayed, almost invisible to frontline commanders. Ships still sail. Aircraft still fly. But operational flexibility narrows. By 1944, American carrier task forces operate with coordination Japan cannot match. Radar-directed fighters, improved damage control and standardized procedures reduce losses. New pilots arrive trained for carrier operations. They are less experienced individually, but more numerous and better supported. Japan's response is to concentrate remaining strength. At the Battle of the Philippine Sea in June 1944, Japanese carriers launched nearly their entire remaining air strength. Fuel shortages limit training beforehand. Pilots fly into combat with minimal preparation. The result is catastrophic. American radar detects incoming raids early. Fighters intercept at distance. Anti-aircraft fire is coordinated and dense. Hundreds of Japanese aircraft are destroyed for minimal American loss. The carriers survive but their air groups do not. From this point forward, Japanese carriers exist largely as empty decks. Their presence influences planning but their power is gone. The decision to continue deploying them reflects institutional inertia. Admitting their obsolescence would require acknowledging that the war's original assumptions no longer apply. As American forces move closer to Japan, distances shorten for the United States and lengthen for Japan. Supply lines invert an advantage. American logistics hubs move forward. Japanese bases become isolated faster than they can be reinforced. The loss of the Marianas places B-29 bombers within range of the Japanese home islands. Defending against them requires fuel, aircraft, pilots, and radar coverage, all in short supply. Each attempt to counter the bombing campaign diverts resources from the fleet. Each attempt to rebuild the fleet lacks fuel to train crews. Options narrow. In October 1944, Japan commits its remaining naval strength to the Battle of Leyte Gulf. The plan is complex, divided into multiple forces meant to draw American carriers away and strike the invasion fleet. The plan reflects both ingenuity and desperation. It assumes precise timing, successful deception, and enemy reaction that can be predicted. None of these assumptions hold. The battle becomes fragmented. Japanese ships are destroyed in detail. The few tactical successes cannot be exploited. Fuel shortages prevent pursuit or regrouping. When the battle ends, the Imperial Japanese Navy no longer exists as an effective fighting force. There is no formal announcement of this fact. Operations continue. Orders are issued. Ships still sail when possible. But the strategic decision space has collapsed. From here, Japan can only trade lives for time. The United States advances toward Iwo Jima, then Okinawa. Each operation is costly. Casualties are heavy. But the industrial flow behind them does not slow. For Japan, each defense consumes what remains. By 1945, fuel shortages ground aircraft. Naval vessels are immobilized. Training ceases. The economy contracts under blockade and bombardment. The war's outcome is no longer decided by battles. It is determined by production curves and logistics tables set in motion years earlier. The original decision to strike Pearl Harbor succeeded tactically. It failed strategically because it could not alter the underlying imbalance it sought to delay. Japan gained time. The United States turned time into force. April 1, 1945. Easter Sunday. Okinawa Ryukyu Islands. The invasion fleet stretches beyond the horizon. Over 1,300 ships carry troops, vehicles, fuel, ammunition, and food toward the last major barrier between American forces and the Japanese home islands. The distance from Okinawa to Kyushu is less than 400 miles. For the first time in the Pacific War, American logistics are operating closer to Japan than Japan's own surviving industrial centers. The geographic constraint that once favored the defender has inverted. Okinawa is not taken because it is symbolically important. It is taken because airfields on Okinawa can support sustained operations against Japan itself. Every decision surrounding the invasion is shaped by one question that has no easy answer. How much force will be required to end the war without destroying the structure needed to occupy the country afterward? Japanese planners understand this as well. What remains of Japan's military power is reorganized not to win, but to impose cost. Aircraft are converted into one-way weapons. Naval vessels are committed with no expectation of return. The battleship Yamato sails south with barely enough fuel to reach Okinawa, carrying orders that make no provision for survival. These decisions are not irrational in isolation. Japan's leadership recognizes that it no longer possesses the means to defeat American forces conventionally. What remains is leverage through attrition. The assumption is that if casualties are high enough, the United States will reconsider the scale or method of invasion. This assumption is based on earlier wars. It does not account for the industrial and political position the United States now occupies in 1945. By this stage, American production is not merely dominant. It is self-sustaining. Losses at Okinawa, ships damaged or sunk, aircraft destroyed, thousands of casualties, are absorbed without disrupting future operations. Replacement units are already scheduled. Training pipelines continue to deliver personnel. Fuel supplies remain sufficient. Japan's losses, by contrast, are terminal. The kamikaze attacks achieve local success. Ships are hit. Fire spread. Crews are killed. But each aircraft lost cannot be replaced. Each trained pilot lost represents the end of a skill set no longer being produced. The ground fighting on Okinawa extends for weeks, then months. Japanese defenders trade space for time. Underground positions survive bombardment. Casualties mount on both sides. But time, which Japan once sought to manipulate through rapid conquest, now works against it exclusively. The longer the battle lasts, the more American airfields expand. The more shipping accumulates. The closer strategic bombers move to permanent bases. By June 1945, organized resistance on Okinawa collapses. The island becomes an operational platform rather than a battlefield. At this point, the point of no return has already passed. It passed quietly months earlier when Japan lost the ability to contest sea control. It passed when fuel shortages immobilized the fleet. It passed when pilot training programs ceased to function. It passed when production no longer matched loss. The invasion of the home islands is planned in detail. Casualty estimates vary widely. None are trivial. American leadership faces a constraint of its own: how to end the war decisively without committing to an open-ended occupation fought house by house across the Japanese mainland. The atomic bomb enters this calculation not as a symbol, but as a solution to accumulated constraint. It offers the possibility of ending the war without further large-scale amphibious operations. It also introduces long-term consequences that cannot yet be measured. When Hiroshima is destroyed on August 6, 1945, and Nagasaki 3 days later, the physical damage is unprecedented. But the decision to surrender is shaped by more than the bombs alone. Japan's economy is shattered. Its navy is gone. Its air defenses are exhausted. The Soviet Union has entered the war in Manchuria, eliminating any remaining diplomatic maneuvering space. There are no viable options left to preserve the existing strategic order. On August 15, Japan announces its surrender. The Pacific War ends not with a final battle, but with the exhaustion of alternatives. The United States did not win the Pacific War through a single decisive moment. It won through a sequence of decisions that steadily reduced Japan's ability to adapt. Industrial scale, logistical reach, and institutional learning converted time into irreversible advantage. Japan's original decision, to strike quickly, expand rapidly, and force negotiation, was logical within the constraints it faced in 1941. It failed because it underestimated how those same constraints would compound over time, and how quickly the United States could transform potential into sustained power. The war reshaped the Pacific world. The United States emerged as a permanent military presence in East Asia. Japan was rebuilt under a security framework that tied its future to American power. Sea control and carrier aviation became the foundation of post-war strategy. The lesson is not one of morality or inevitability. It is one of limits. Wars are not decided only by courage or skill. They are decided by production schedules, fuel reserves, training cycles, and decisions that feel reasonable long before their consequences become visible. In the Pacific War, the outcome was determined when one side gained the ability to recover faster than it could be damaged, and the other did not. By the time the final battles were fought, the result had already been calculated.